current profession?
I am a science teacher at Bell High School in Hurst, Texas. Currently, I teach credit recovery chemistry and IB biology and theory of knowledge. If you need it, in the past, I've taught advanced academics chemistry and on-level chemistry as well.
Wow. Awesome. So can you please state your educational background, like the degrees you have, and then all of that stuff?
Sure. It'll be controversial. I got my bachelor's of science from Texas A&M in biology, and I have a master's in education for curriculum and instruction in science from UTA.
Okay, so what made you want to pursue a career in biology and education?
I had a darn good advanced biology teacher when I was in the IB program here at Bell High School. I started off just with kind of a general, I guess, proclivity towards science. And I majored in marine biology, at least initially. And then I tutored some kids at when I was in college for just some extra money. And these were kids who had never passed the state science test, right? And they were struggling, and I really liked teaching science to them. So that made me want to go into education for science in particular.
Okay. So what does your day-to-day profession entail on both the scientific and educational side?
Okay, so on the scientific side, I mean, I probably get more challenged on the science in my advanced science classes. So in IB biology, I kind of have to be a jack of all trades for all of the different types of sciences that biology entails. So, you know, I kind of have to stay up to date on biotechnology and on my understanding of anatomy and physiology and a little bit about, you know, evolution and natural history. And so I've just kind of got to have a good general understanding of all the different facets of biology. In terms of education, it's just how to present the material, I guess. So I teach all levels, from kids who don't see the value of a high school diploma and are struggling to get there, all the way up to Anne's peers in in IB biology. So the way you present material to those students is quite different, and it's probably one of the bigger challenges of the job is figuring out how to communicate sometimes really complex things in a way that holds interest and or is accessible for whoever the student is and whatever their level is.
Definitely, yeah. And then what path did you take in your undergraduate and graduate career to get to your current profession today?
So like I said, I started off as a marine biology major, and figured out that I really liked, you know, basically getting paid to be a nerd about stuff I really like talking about. And so I moved up to main campus at A&M College Station, and changed my major to just straight biology. So I got my Bachelor of Science in biology, but I had basically I've got like a whole list of minors. One of them was basically like a secondary science education minor. They were offering a program for certification. If you guys know anything about education, math and science teachers a lot of places are hard up for them. So a lot of times there's programs, there's probably one at UT, right, where they try to attract math and science teachers. And so I went through one of those programs. I can't even remember what it was called. And that's how I picked up my certification along with my Bachelor of Science. And I actually just recently got my master's degree last year. So I graduated in May with my master's of curriculum and instruction.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
That is impressive.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you mentioned before that you were an IB student, and do you think that had any impact on where you are today?
Yeah. So kind of came from a rougher background. I'm a first generation college student, not a whole lot of support at home when I was younger. I was when the IB program started in HEB, they were like hand picking. They were recruiting kids all the way down to the junior high level. And so, it was kind of this new thing at the time, and I tried it out, and just kind of, found an academic home. My teachers were really supportive, and were some positive influence that I think I was starving for at a young age. And the IB program gave me something to concentrate on that wasn't quite so negative like my home life was, I would say. So I, definitely think that it changed me, and especially with my IB biology teacher in particular made me want to go and do things for at least some people that she did for me.
So you were just talking a little bit about when you were a student. Have you, with the constant development of biology, how is the material and teaching style different from when you were a student at your high school?
Oh man, it's dramatically different. So my biology teacher was excellent, and she was very strong in her content. And I probably shouldn't cuss on this, but total like hard butt, right? And it's what I needed at that age. But she was very dry, and I don't know how she did it looking back on it now, because these were slides that didn't have pictures in them. I mean, they were just the words, right? And she wasn't particularly animated, but man, like we hung on every word. Nowadays, it is completely different, right? So cell phones, we had them, but they didn't access the internet. They weren't smartphones. And that's a constant battle. How do you compete with the instant gratification of Instagram, right? And how do you sell that to a group of students where their frontal lobes aren't going to finish developing until they're 25, right? I mean, it's just, we lose. So there's, I think there's a bigger, I don't want to say entertainment component to it, but maybe that is what it is, right? It's trying to capture interest and relevance, and making it meaningful. And, the fact of the matter is, depending on the class that you're taking, it's not always meaningful. It doesn't always matter to that student. And that's been, I think, a unique challenge that was not around when I was a student.
I bet the attention span of students nowadays have definitely changed from back then, because you said of smartphones and the internet, stuff like that. So I bet that's a challenge as well.
Yeah, it was pretty bad right after COVID. I would say we're starting to see improvements on that. But I think it's because there's been more intentional efforts over the last couple years to just do like harder bans on cell phones. It was a little, I mean, you guys recently graduated. You probably noticed that it was like trying to, the cat was out of the bag. You're not going to get it back in, especially after COVID, right? But like, so you guys, I think, probably didn't have as strict expectations on that, I would guess, from your different schools. It's starting to get better, and you're starting to see more results from it, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. After sharing your experiences and explaining all this, would you say these changes affected your perspective on the scientific community, or just like how you educate?
Yeah, definitely how I educate. While I do what I do because I like the age that I teach, and I want to set them up to do whatever it is that they want to do, to have some opportunities, right? But especially in my advanced classes, we've got some pretty serious issues that require some people with good scientific, creative minds to solve those problems. And I think one of the things I've noticed over my 13 years is you have a lot of kids, even in advanced levels, that come into science and they think that it's like this black and white thing, this memorization of facts or whatever. And that's not what it is. And that's not what's going to solve problems and progress the pursuit of science further. I try to be pretty intentional about teaching my students that it's not black and white, and that science is as creative as any other subject is. You have to be able to be curious enough to ask the right questions. And then B, you have to be creative enough to figure out some really clever solutions. And that's all while being knowledgeable enough to understand what it is that you're looking at when you do collect data and are able to see trends. And so I think about that when I am working with my students, and, you know, hopefully, especially in those advanced classes. I mean, you guys are some people that, if you think about science the right way, you're going to solve big problems. And I want to try to contribute to maybe adding good scientists out there that can do that.
For sure. And as a biology professor, what do you, like, especially after explaining all this and how with the new progressions, what do you consider the most critical role of educators is in inspiring the next generation of biologists? How would you make them go forward with their ideas?
You know, getting them comfortable with feeling what they're with failing, I think. You know, I've told students before that get kind of obsessed with the number, with the grade, right? That they need to learn how to say the F word, fail. And like failure, the truth is failure is part of the scientific endeavor. You every once in a while someone will discover something serendipitously, right? But usually it's a bunch of trial and error and a bunch of failure. And I think to set up the next generation, you've got to get people comfortable with that idea that there is no perfect experiment. They're all inherently flawed for different reasons, and that you do the very best that you can. And, you know, maybe this is a good way of thinking about life too, right? At the end of the day, you do the best you can with what you have, you recognize the flaws, and then you work from there. And that can be really tough to break students of when they've gone through education previously. That's just like, oh yeah, memorize these facts and then spit it back out on a test.
Yeah, so like with you talking about inspiration and encouraging students to go forward with this thinking, to you, is there any specific person or group that's inspired you to pursue the path that you are right now?
Oh yeah, like I said earlier, my IB biology teacher was critical.
Are there any specific programs, internships, and extracurriculars that you took part in during your educational timeline that aided you in pursuing your current profession?
You know, yeah, there was. I can't remember the name of that program that I went through at A&M. I don't even know if it's still a thing or not. But the essence of it was that it allowed, well, one of the big issues with math and science majors is they can go and they can make more money elsewhere a lot of times, right? Engineering or whatever. And so this program, it was basically a way of telling those science majors, hey, if teaching doesn't work out for you, it's okay, because this program allows you to still get your degree if you want to do something in this later, but then you can get your teaching credentials alongside it. And I just, yeah, whatever that was huge. And there were other, I work with a lot of people that got alternative certifications, meaning they didn't go through programs like that. They didn't take education classes. So they're science majors that never took any classes about how to communicate what they know. And that program was instrumental to setting me up for success and making me realize that this is something that I could actually do with the rest of my life.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Let's take a transition into research. Can you outline any research that you've done in your high school or in your university years?
Yeah, so, you know, I have a concentration in natural history, so it didn't really lend itself in college to any lab research. When I was in high school, I did some work with looking at antibiotic resistance in bacteria, but it was pretty limited because obviously that's kind of a tough thing to experiment on ethically.
And what qualities and qualifications do you think are most crucial in your field of profession?
I think you have to be to be good at it and last in the profession, you have to have a little bit of a thicker skin. I think you need to be able to fail without having an existential crisis, because you're going to have bad days. The profession is woefully undersupported. So I think you have to be pretty versatile and creative about how you get around those kinds of things. If you are not somebody who can think on your feet, if you have to have things work a certain way all of the time, it's probably not a good career path for you.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your profession?
Education's changed a lot in 13 years, and we're not super well supported. A lot of times what happens in education is like they'll come out with some hot new thing that requires a subscription, or the district has to pay for it or whatever. You learn how to use it, and then the subscription gets taken away the next year because it's not supported anymore. That can be really difficult. And that's just the technology side of things. I think kids have changed. Like in some ways, kids are kids and they've always been that way, right? But they're being exposed to this really unique world right now that most of the people that I work with have not been exposed to. We didn't grow up in this. And so we're trying to relate to these people that we're teaching, but to be honest, there's a lot of ways that we can't relate to them. And so that's been a pretty big barrier, I think, that all of us are trying to overcome.
Okay, so what is the most important thing that you would like your students to take away from your lessons?
If they're not into science, I want them to know that failure is inevitable. And that's something that I hope if they take that and that makes them a more robust scientist because of it, I think that that's awesome. And I hope that makes them fall flat on their face and then get back up a little bit sooner and a little stronger because they learned how to do that in my class. And if they don't apply it to science, then I hope they apply that to life and they recognize that it's okay and it happens to everybody, and they just have to get back up a little faster and a little stronger.
Okay, perfect. What resources would you recommend to students today to help jumpstart a profession in STEM?
Resources. What do you mean by that? Is that like technology resources or programs?
Like programs or just like outreach things that can help students get more involved in STEM?
Yeah, there's a lot of universities that offer programs for high school students that they're fairly competitive. And I only know about this because I filled out a bunch of recommendation letters for students that have participated in these things, right? And they're usually really cool opportunities. And I want to say you participated in one, right?
Yes, the study abroad one.
Yeah, so there's just a lot, there's study abroad ones, there's ones at universities all over the country that allow high school students to participate in research opportunities so they actually understand what real science looks like, that it's not just regurgitating facts onto a test. I'm a little partial, but I think the IB program probably supports better scientific thinking better than the AP program. I would not say that in front of any current students I have right now. I would not say that in front of parents, but I think it's the God's honest truth.